Good day, folks. Welcome back to my neck of the woods. My name is Dika, where I share my experience, my knowledge, hoping to lessen your learning curve. So there won't be any lessening of the learning curve today or sharing any knowledge, but there is a topic that I've been meaning to make a video about for quite some time, and it's about fair chase. Does fair chase still exist with all the technology that we have in the hunting world? I'm not sure that it does, but this is open for discussion, and I would like people to put in the comments what you think about fair chase and what you think your definition of fair chase is. I looked up a couple definitions of fair chase on the internet, and it's rather difficult to find because it kind of falls into the world of ethics. So before I get started, please sub my channel, like my videos, and make some comments. You know that I love the comments. Hopefully I get some good comments from this one, and maybe learn what other hunters think about fair chase. All right, so I looked up a definition. I tried to find how fair chase was defined, and the only thing that I really found was, I wrote them down here, was one by Boone and Crockett. This was, I don't know if it was written in 2016, but it was certainly posted in 2016, and I'm just going to read it off a piece of paper here and then talk a little bit about it. So Boone and Crockett defined fair chase as the ethical sportsmanlike pursuit and taking any free-ranging, wild, native North American big game animal that does not give the hunter an unfair advantage. I think a lot of it is unfair advantage. That's the key word that you take from this, and free-ranging, give them the ability to escape. Now, I found another definition on hunted.com. And it's just basically hunter education, talks about rules and regulations and laws. All the other definitions that I found on fair chase reference to Boone and Crockett for the most part. There's really not, because it falls on ethics, and you can't really define ethics. So the hunted.com one was fair chase rules. Now they have their own set of rules, which are basically the laws and guidelines, rules and regulations, and it varies from state to state. So they say the fair chase rules make sure hunters have no unfair advantage, there's that same word again, over wild game by balancing the skills and equipment of the hunter with the abilities of the animal to escape. So they talk about the abilities of the hunter having to do with fair chase. Now, what they mean by that is a seasoned hunter may have a little more discretion in how they harvest an animal. And I think that is true across the board. As I grow as a hunter, I have a little more discretion. I'm not just flinging arrows out there, shooting at everything that moves. Same thing with gun hunters, you know? So what the hunter ed, they kind of give the newer hunter a little more leniency when it comes to fair chase. I think they just want them to get sort of hooked on it, or get out there and harvest a deer, or mostly deer hunting is what I talk about, and turkey too, but to give them the ability, and a lot of it goes around free range. Now, I asked some other hunters out there, what's your definition of free chase? And they talk about anything that's legal, and as long as the game animal is not enclosed and it has the ability to escape. That seems to be the main thing. Now, I went as far as to look up what unfair means. I know what unfair means, and I'm sure people know what unfair means, but the unfair defined, and it says not being in accordance with rules or standards. So as far as that, it's following the laws. So as far as Boone and Crockett is concerned, fair chase is as long as you're following the laws and the animal is not enclosed and has the ability to escape. But then it talks about unfair advantage. So unfair means kind of following the laws, but there are many, many things that I think that give us an advantage. And a hunter is always looking for something that gives you an advantage so you can harvest more deer. So they kind of go against each other. I kind of came up with some examples of what I think gives us an unfair advantage, and this is why I think that the fair chase with technology doesn't always exist. There are people that don't use all these unfair advantages, but I use them, and I use them a lot, and I'm going to talk about them. And obviously I want you to put in the comments if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you think that, I think this is a great topic for discussion because it does involve ethics, and the technology is growing in the hunting world, everything from a a thermal scope on a firearm, does that give you an unfair advantage? I mean, I know people that coyote hunt at night and they use obviously night scopes and thermals, and I mean, is that an unfair advantage? I I think maybe a night scope obviously is required, but a thermal, do you have to use a thermal? Does it give you that unfair advantage? All right, so I have some things that I want to talk about. First off is trail cameras. A lot of people think that trail cameras should be banned in the hunting setting, and there are some states that have already banned them. I know that Arizona is one of them. But trail cameras are an excellent resource. And what I'm talking about is cell cameras. Cell cameras give you that real-time picture, and there are people that go out and they hunt an area, and they will just put cell cameras all around, and they'll know when a deer is coming in. They'll know that that camera is on, that deer is on that trail, and that deer is on its way in to, and you get that. Is that an unfair advantage? I know many people that use cell cameras, and they'll just take them and they'll put them on scrapes. I'm one of those people. And they'll know when that deer is visiting that scrape, whether it's nighttime, whether it's daytime. And if it's daytime, we'll hunt that scrape. If it's nighttime, well, we're not going to hunt it. We're going to move on. We're going to move that camera and try to find another spot. I have cameras on my my existing hunting sites, cell cameras, and a lot of times based on the wind or that day or what I'm getting on pictures, that's going to depict where I'm going to hunt that day. Is that an unfair advantage? I think it depends on the way you look at it, and obviously ethics comes down to it, and it's certainly legal in the state where I hunt. Another thing I want to talk about is crossbows. Crossbows being used during bow season. Is that an unfair advantage? Should it be its own season? I know that in certain seasons you can use a rifle. You can use, in Massachusetts here, there's only bow, shotgun, and we have muzzle loader. And those seasons are relatively short into November and December. But bow season, you can continue to hunt bow season throughout the year, from October to December. And there are certain things that may, when these sort of laws or this fair chase came into existence, that have changed over the years. Now compound bows are spectacular. The speed and the power that you can get out of a compound bow is sort of amazing. And so we have crossbows here, and I have a lot of crossbow friends that say, well, it doesn't really extend your range. It's not any more lethal. I 100% disagree with that. This is my first year crossbow hunting, just because I have shoulder and hand issues. And I mean, it basically gives me the range of a shotgun, and not the lethality, but the range of it. And I mean, I have a red dot scope on it. It extends my range of shooting a crossbow. I mean, I'm dead on out to 60 yards. And I'm not saying that I wasn't with a bow. I mean, 40 or 50 with a bow, but nowadays the range, because of the technology, it would be unheard of, I don't know, 30 years ago or 20 years ago, where, we have a compound bow and there's people that are practicing and honing that skill where they're very, very accurate out to 90 yards. Now, whether the lethality and the lethality of harvesting an animal at that range is good. I guess it depends on the bow and the archer. But my crossbow now, I mean, it's similar to a firearm where I don't have that movement where I have to pull, and the deer don't pick up on that movement. I've harvested a couple deer with it already this year, and it's much easier, in my opinion, than the bow, because the bow, you really have to wait for the animal to move and not looking at you, and then you can get that movement. With this, I mean, with a crossbow, you already have it pointed at the animal, and you're just waiting for your shot. You're not waiting for any particular time, I mean, and the accuracy, I mean, I shot them at 20 yards, and the accuracy was spot on. And even the scope that I have on it, I have a 20, 30, and a 40. I could use my 20, like when you put the dots on the animal, the 20, 30, and the 40 are all in the vitals. So it's fast enough that I can range that animal and not have to really think about what dot I need to put on the animal. The dots are just they're very, very close together. I dropped 2 inches at 40 yards, which is still a lethal shot on a deer. The other thing I want to talk about, but is a crossbow fair chase in a bow season? I think it gives me an advantage. Another advantage, is it an unfair advantage? I'm not really sure. I think that's up for discussion. Another thing I want to talk about is the technology with the range finding sights. Now you can put a sight on your bow that range finds also. Now a lot of people would think that that would cut down on wounded deer, because a lot of people, we misjudge yardage all the time, and a lot of deer get wounded. But does that give you an unfair advantage? I mean, it's legal. I think it's legal in all the states. Does that give you an unfair advantage? I think it does a little bit. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. Another one is baiting. Baiting's not legal in every state, but I definitely think that gives you an unfair advantage. There are people that just hunt over bait, put giant piles of corn and giant piles of apples, and they come in, and the deer don't even know that they're being hunted, and you just pick them off like fish in a barrel. I think that's 100% unfair chase, but that's legal. So as far as being unfair and defining unfair basically means following the rules, the standards, and they differ from state to state. This goes back to why I think it just doesn't exist anymore. People talk about it, and people boast about it, and people complain about it, but I'm fairly sure that it really doesn't exist anymore. And obviously, I want to know what you think. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the clothing that's out there, ScentLok and like Hex. A lot of people think ScentLok is a gimmick. I personally don't think it's a gimmick at all. I think it does work. And I think Hex works also. If you don't know what Hex is, Hex kind of changes the electrical current of your body, where a lot of people use it just to get closer to animals. It doesn't cut down on the scent, but it does allow people just to get very close to animals. And it's used by marine people, it's used by hunters, it's used by biologists. A lot of biologists put Hex on when they're out there examining reptiles or mammals or whatever it is. They use it just to get closer to animals, and it's proven that it does work. So that's really all I have to talk about, but I really hope people chime in and really get some comments going, and I'd really like to hear what people have to say about fair chase and if it does exist. All right, be well, sub the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.